Okay, this is Dustin Gibson with OPT and OPTcorp.com. We just did the imaging talk over the weekend here at SCAE, and a huge turnout. A lot of people very interested in processing techniques, especially a way to simplify it, and that's kind of what this is going to be about. Ginny and I, which these are our images here, we're going to work through this one of the Rosette. Have kind of rejected the idea that processing should take 4 and 5 hours, and so we've tried to cut out everything that you possibly can from the process to get to a good image quickly, and that's what we're going to work through here. So we're going to start in PixInsight, jump over to Nebulosity, and then finish in Photoshop. We don't use Photoshop for much, just one filter, and honestly, the first steps that we do in PixInsight can all be done in Nebulosity, so it's not that you have to have all three programs. We're just going to kind of get our hands a little dirty with each one and go from there. So we'll jump right into it. Let's get into PixInsight. This is the starting screen of PixInsight, and so the first thing you would do when you come here is you'd go to script, and you'd upload all your files into the batch pre-processing script, which will take you to this screen, and you can add all your files. So if you have bias frames, darks, flats, lights, you just click each one and you upload them separately. You can just drag them all in and it'll separate them for you. It's a wonderful part of this program, makes it very easy. You can select your reference image in your output directory, hit run, and that'll give you your master files. Since this part is boring, we're going to skip it and jump right into the fun part. So let's open the master files and we'll go from there. These are the files for the Rosette that I was just showing you. We'll open these up and take a look. Okay, so when you open your files, obviously this is what probably most of you are seeing, just a dark image. So we're going to grab the screen transfer function, and without really stretching them, it's going to allow us to see them by clicking this button here, the auto stretch, and see what we got. So this is the S2 shot here. Ginny and I shoot in narrowband because we shoot from cities. So we shoot next to street lamps and cars passing by and those things. So we shoot narrowband to get through all of that. All right, here is the 03, and this is the HA shot, which is always a lot cleaner than the other two. Very rarely even needs much noise reduction, whereas S2 obviously needs a little work. So looking at these, you can kind of tell that they're not all exactly the same size. So we need to crop out some of this black in the image so that when we combine the three for a color image, our histograms don't get crazy. So we can start there with the dynamic crop tool. So we click that in, and the first thing you want to do using this tool is just draw a box around the image on the part you want to keep. So we just drag this over, draw the box, and then we can apply this size to the other two images so that they're all the same and we can combine them. So we want to drag this little arrow, which is the apply button in PixInsight, and apply it to the other two images first. So we apply it there, it'll crop those to that size, and then we can just hit the check to apply it to the image we drew it on. There we go. So now all three are the same size, and we can combine those to get a color image. And that's going to be the next step. So we come up to Process, which is where all of these tools are found. You have it here, and you also have it here on the side of the screen. We come to Process, and we want to come to Channel Management and combine the channels with Channel Combination. So we open this one up, and to keep the image the same as what we saw in the beginning, we're going to use the Hubble palette again, which is red S2. So we select the red, put in S2. Next is green, which is HA, and the blue is 03. So once we have our three channels, we're just going to hit the global apply, which is the circle, and now we have a color image. So let's take a look at it and see what we've got. And it's green, and images always are when you start combining the channels. So there's a tool here in PixInsight which makes it very, very easy to get rid of. Just come to Process, Noise Reduction, and SCNR. And we don't have to change any of the default settings at all. Just grab the apply, drag it over, and the green is gone. Very, very easy. So the next problem that we're looking at is the background still has this blue haze to it. So we want to get rid of that and see what we've actually got in the image. So there's another tool for that here, which is under background modelization. You can use either one of these, and a lot of times we try both to see which one works out better, but I'll just do dynamic background extraction here because it's the more difficult to use, and we'll work through that process. So the first thing you want to do is click on the image so that you can start working with it, and it applies it here. And we want to set the correction to subtraction. We want to subtract the background. So from there, we just need to tell it what the background is. So you can just start, we can just start clicking on the image in the background of the image. So this is background. We just don't want to click on stars. So I click a couple times in each quadrant, or 3 in this case, and we just tell the program which parts of this image are background. So there we go. We just hit apply, and the background will disappear. So let's take a look at what we've got. That's our image. It's got the background that it pulled out for us right here, and this is what it removed from the image. So now we can take a look at what we've got, but a lot of that blue should be gone. And there's our image. So a lot better than what we were just looking at here. We've gotten rid of a lot of that blue, and we're starting to have an image. All right, we'll get rid of that. And so the last step that I use in PixInsight is the noise reduction. And the reason is, you remember that first S2 image had a lot of noise in it. That is, so we got 03. Well, we got too many things here. Let's see if I can even find it. There it is. So you see how noisy this is, and that's all been injected into our final image. So it's not looking too noisy, but we can still do a little bit better. So that's what we want to do here. And this is the most complicated process of the few that we use in PixInsight, but after doing it a couple times, it just kind of becomes second nature. So what you want to do is grab this tab, and anytime you pull this tab over to another part of the screen, it's just going to make a copy of the image. And you can do it as many times as you want. It's just going to do the same thing over and over. So we don't need all these copies. We can just get rid of them. We just need one. And what we want to do now is grab the histogram transformation tool, and we want to apply this image to the histogram so that we can get the accurate histogram here. So clicking on the image, it applies it to screen transfer. We can drag that and set it to the bottom tab of the histogram transformation, just like this, and you see the curve change. That's what we want. So we want a live preview of our changes. That's what this little hollow circle does. Click on that, and now we can start dragging this around to see if we can change the image. So we want to set it to where the light parts of the image that don't need a lot of noise reduction, like this area here, we can kind of leave alone. And really what we want to leave dark is the parts of the image out here that do need a little more noise reduction. So we can keep dragging it, and you'll see a lot of people do this different ways. You can bring this bar over as well so that you can really isolate the highlights of the image like this. A lot of times I just leave it alone, and I just let it work that way. So here we can apply it as is, about right there, and we'll just apply this to the image here, to the clone. Once we have that done, we can take this clone that we just applied this to and drag it over to the image that we're starting with. And instead of making another copy of this, we're going to apply that copy to the original image. You'll see this go red, and that means now you have a mask, and you'll also see it on the image this way. The red part of the image is concealed, the white is revealed, which means it will be the part that gets the attention from the noise reduction. So we want to reverse this because all the areas we need to correct the noise on are right now protected. So the way we do that is we come here to mask, and we just invert that mask. You can see now it's not protected, and we can work on it. So go to the Process tab again, and right here is a tool called TGVD Noise. You can also find it under Noise Reduction, and it's the same thing. So what we want to do is use this tool to get rid of all the noise. I've tried a lot of things here, and I've found that 400 iterations and -5 is kind of what we've settled into using on just about every image that we do. You can make minor adjustments if you need to, but that one generally works for us. So we just apply that, and then let it work. And this takes a few moments because it has to go through 3 channels, each of the channels separately. So we'll give it a second here and we'll be right back. Okay, so we're just about done here. We're at 95% on the last channel, so it should show us something here pretty soon. There we go. Now it's telling us we're ready again to get started. So let's close this. Let's get all this stuff out of the way. And this is our image, so let's pull the mask off of it. We'll make another copy. All right, so there's our image. We're looking pretty good. So what I do next is I save this as a TIFF so that I can kick it to Nebulosity. So let's just call this test file 1. We'll save it as a FITS. Actually, to desktop. We'll make this easy to find on ourselves. And that's the last step in PixInsight. So we can jump ahead now to the next program, which is going to be Nebulosity. And the rest of the image, for the most part, will be done there. Minus one step that's done in Photoshop. This is it. So that's all we use PixInsight for. It's pretty straightforward. So let's jump to Nebulosity. All right, in Nebulosity, once we're here, we want to open the file we just made in PixInsight. So we'll find that one, should be test file 1. Jumping in, we can pull this up. And as you can see, we're back to having an image that's not stretched yet. So that's our first goal here in Nebulosity. So once we get here, and again, everything that's been done so far in PixInsight can be done in Nebulosity. This program is a fantastic program and has a lot of capability. The batch pre-processing we went through, all of that stuff is here. And so, you know, if you just don't want to have 3 different programs for your processing, you don't have to. Most of this stuff can be done in any of the 3 that we're using here for this. But for our purposes and to show you the workflow that Ginny and I use, this is how we do it. So the first thing we want to do is come to this level power stretch tool under image. And this is just a process we do over and over again. We just drag this bottom slider here because you can see the histogram is too far to the left. So we want to see what we've got under all these shadows here. So we pull this over. And the way I like to do it is I start pulling this until I can get this line right here to lean to the right and curve at the top. So the first thing we're going to do is pull that, hit done. Open it again, and now we're going to chop off the flat part that we just created. So chop it off without clipping the image any. So we'll come right up to the line. There we go. Hit done. All right, and you're starting to see a little more of the image. Same thing, just open it again. Bring it over to the right, or slide this to the left to bring the histogram to the right. And about right here, you can see what I mean, where now we're not straight up and down anymore, but we're starting to lean to the right. That's generally the indicator I use to tell me when to stop. So I'll hit done, and open it again just to chop off the flat we created. So there we go. All right. The hard work in Nebulosity is already done. So now this is the fun part. This is where the magic happens. You want to come to image again, use this curves tool, and this top part here is the highlights. This controls the shadows. So the first thing we need to see is, let's see what's actually there. I just grab this and drag it all the way up to the top left corner with just about every image I have. And there's the image. We're starting to see something. So now we can see what we've got. These highlights we want to really see what we can push out of them. And this is the shadows. So I usually start by trying to push that one as well. Obviously, we wouldn't want the image to be this bright, but I generally start there just so I can kind of see how the stars look. And in this case, I'd say they look pretty good, but I'm going to get rid of a few of them just to make it look a little bit cleaner. And there's a tool for that here, which is again under Image, Sharpen Blur, and then you just go to Tighten Star Edges. This also helps a lot if you have star trails or other things in your image that you just want to clean up. You can use this tool, and as you see, you drag it all the way to the right, and the stars just kind of disappear. So it really cleans them up a lot and shows off the nebulosity in the image. So from there, we want to back it off, and this is just kind of a seasoned taste thing here. But let's just say for this purpose, we'll go here. All right, now we want to go back to curves and just kind of fine-tune the image. So we'll push the highlights even more since we're not really blown out here. And now we'll give it a nice little S-curve to tweak it in. All right, now we're starting to see the image. our blacks aren't too black and the highlights aren't pushed to where they're all just completely white. So let's just stop here, and we'll give it a little bit of saturation just to give it a little more color. So again, image, adjust hue, saturation, and this middle slider with the S is for saturation, and I just drag it all the way to the right, and then I back off until the color starts to look a little better. So something in this range is fine. Anything else we want to do, we can tweak in Photoshop. This step's really not even necessary unless you just want to do it. So from there, we are done with nebulosity. We just have to save the image. We'll save it as a TIFF file so we can kick it over to Photoshop. And let's save this as test file 2. And we'll save that to desktop. And we are done with nebulosity. It's really pretty simple, and we've really changed this from a black image with a couple stars to something we're starting to see. So now we'll kick it over to Photoshop, and that'll be the last step of this, which is really just kind of tweaking and fine-tuning the image. We'll only use one thing there. So moving to Photoshop. Okay, so this is the Photoshop start screen, and what we want to do here is, let's see, make sure we have our layers. So we can bring those in. All right, and we want to open the file that we just created in Nebulosity and PixInsight into Photoshop. So here we have it. This is test file 2. All right, there's our file. And the first thing we want to do is just create a duplicate background layer. So we'll drag this little guy down, create the background copy. And now this is what we're going to work with. We're going to grab Filter tab here, go to Other, and find High Pass. This is the primary thing we use Photoshop for. I'm not a huge fan of Photoshop for astro image processing, mainly because it's just so complicated, and I feel like it's easy to get lost for 4 or 5 hours in Photoshop, and we're really trying to simplify this process. So as you can see, as you change the radius here, you start to highlight different parts of the image that you're going to be bringing out. And so what we want to find is an area that's right there in the middle somewhere where we can bring out the parts, the details, and that's what we're looking for here. So somewhere right in here, it's a good starting place. And you can do as many of these as you want until you've got all the details showing that you feel like you can bring out. So we're going to hit OK. And we're going to double click right here to the right of background copy. So let's double click. And now we can work with this filter that we just created. So under this layer, we're going to drag this left slider over until we start to see the blacks appear as true blacks in the image. So there we go. We start to see them there. And this is generally where I stop. If you hold the Alt key and click on this, you'll split it. And if you grab the left side of it and bring it back the other direction, you'll see those blacks start to disappear, and it'll smooth it out in the image. If you really want to protect the star color that you have in the image, you can do the exact same thing with the whites. A lot of times I don't, because it just brings more detail out into the image otherwise. So from there, you grab this top blend mode drop down and just overlay what you just created onto the image. And it's a pretty significant difference you'll get in your images, even with just one pass of a high pass filter. So this is where we are now, and you can see the difference with just one filter. So if you feel like, oh, it's a little too cooked, I've got too much, because even now you're starting to see that, you know, the image is breaking apart in a few places, you can double click it again, and you see that you have an opacity slider here. So you can drag that over and really kind of, again, season to taste however it is you feel like you like it in the image. So for this case, we'll just say 83%. Since we're not going to keep this image, and it's just for demonstration purposes. Okay, so we're close. That's just about the final step. The last thing I usually do in Photoshop is just grab this vibrance button and just push it until the color looks like it's about where I'd want it. So for this one, let's just say 20. And we've got an image. That's it. That's the entire process. So we don't use Photoshop for much, and obviously you can clean things up, and there are a lot of tools here, really in all three programs, that you could do a lot more with. But if you're just looking to process an image in 10, 15 minutes, or if you just want to develop a workflow that you don't have to dump a lot of time into, and you just rather focus on the imaging part and see what you get afterward, this is kind of where we are with things. And I've found that a lot of people, a lot of customers here at OPT are just looking for a way to see their data and a little bit better process than digging into something for 4 or 5 hours or even weeks at a time in some cases. So this is our workflow. It works for us. And again, we've done that on just about every single image that you see here, including the ones that are really pushed in HA. And so you can take a look at these at everyclearnight.com. But this is how Jenny and I do our processing, and I hope it helps. If you'd like to have an email with these steps laid out, just reach out to me at dustin@optcorp.com. That's DUSTIN at optcorp.com, and I can send this email out with all the instructions so that you can follow it step by step, or you can just follow it through this video. I hope this helps, guys. Thanks a lot.